Okay, so for this video, we're going to talk about a topic that excites a lot of people. A lot of people are very interested in this, and it's important to U.S. residents. Let's talk about it. There's a lot of people who, to some degree, open up their own businesses through streaming, through video platforms and stuff like that. There's people that go out and about and do franchising and stuff. There's different scales of business. There's businesses that you have like micro businesses, virtual businesses, home businesses, and then more commercial businesses that have like they kind of pay rent and stuff, which is frankly kind of a crappy model and stuff because the rent prices are rather atrocious. The rent prices are actually economically criminal and stuff, but I won't I won't I won't disturb anybody too much by talking about that. So um, now for my experience, just talk my experience first. I've been running businesses and growing businesses since 2015 and stuff. I started off with just an associate's degree in mathematics and just you know just going off of like common sense logic, what I learned and stuff, and that good calculating mindset I developed in math study and stuff. I studied mathematics very hard. I would I was reading, I was trying to study as far ahead of my courses as I could and stuff, giving myself extra work and really making sure I can. Yeah, I'm ready to. I was ready to do this stuff in the real world, like do the math in my head on the fly and stuff, and then eventually I'm going on to get my bachelor's and blah blah blah. But so and to realize the benefit of that education and stuff, I I not only um, hmm, hmm, I hope I'm not hitting a hard wall here. But what I did was I basically you know like basically sanitized all the knowledge in my head, free of what I was doing in class and stuff, and broke it down so I could apply it to the real world. And um, I would talk to some experts in the field here and there. I met one of the people that worked on COBOL and the development of COBOL and Fortran and stuff, who was also one of my mentors. And yeah, but anyway, um, anything else? I already talked about the operational research certificate and stuff. But yeah, I've consulted and grown and worked in all kinds of businesses. I guess I've personally run many kinds of businesses. I've run IT businesses, game development businesses, um, and I have a transportation related business right now. And yeah, so nobody here needs to feel unsure about whether I know what I'm talking about or not. Um, if if my appearance or demeanor, whatever, puts you off, I'm sorry. You're not going to realize any benefit, and maybe you're just not cut out for this. Really, you should try just doing simpler work, repetitive work. Some menial work or something. If that's your if that's your mindset. But let me just minimize this. Um, oh, what's this? Engineering stuff here? What's this? Okay. Yeah, engineering stuff. There is. Yeah. Okay. Um, engineering is an important topic. You should study it and stuff. So right. So for now, these aren't all of the processes on every level of business that I mentioned. Whether the business is being run out of a mailbox or a huge office building, a complex of skyscrapers, whatever scale you want to think of businesses. You also have like regional businesses where it's like different franchises in different areas and stuff. Um, uh, but and on that and stuff, there's a huge difference between running it in a established metropolis like Manhattan, or running it like five across five different states and stuff, where things work very differently and stuff. So just know that. There's some nuance there. They all can't be run the same and stuff. So if you have any motivated reasoning about that, um, what you would want to do there is probably look at the different variations, like, okay, I run these individually and stuff. What's the return of value? Not necessarily the money and stuff, but the return of value and stuff. Because value in business has a strange tendency um, to liquidate into money and stuff when it's not about money. Um, you know, this is partially responsible for the boom and bust cycling and stuff. So, um, yeah. Anyway, let's just go into it. So, you have your legal compliance processes like your standard operating procedures and best operating procedures. This is a great way to strike a balance between efficiency and revenue and staying out of legal trouble and avoiding adverse actions from people and stuff. The people in your business can be nice and polite, but if everything else in your business is nice and polite and stuff with the environment around it, the environment, like the people and the legal institutions and the interest groups and stuff, then you're gonna have some problems. So then you have your business structure and stuff. What do you think of the structure of your business? You want to think of what's keeping the processes stable and regular and stuff. And is there room for process elasticity? You need elasticity and stuff, so you to reach higher tiers of earning and stuff. Though of course, in this aspect of it, you have to respect that every every collection of processes has a natural capacity to earn money and stuff. So like if you feel like you're on this hamster wheel of putting all this effort and sweat and energy, but you're not but the extra dollars or whatever that your value is not coming in, you have to think to yourself, maybe this type of a business just doesn't earn, and you have to think about the impact in the other businesses and stuff, because this is where the business competition aspect comes in and stuff. You have to be very cautious of the signal that your business is sending out to the world. So yeah. Now, however, this is the good part. With most people, they're not really. You don't have to feel bad about your business beating theirs. You just don't and stuff, because they're just not decent. They're just not good people. They're just not. They're just not. So, here your practices and stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things related about business practice, right? That don't necessarily fall into SOPs and best operating procedures. Um, so to that I can say, what are some examples of practices? Just things that are different and stuff. Like um, how does a retail chain A do things different from gas station chain B and stuff that don't necessarily have to do with the SOPs and best operating procedures and stuff. Um, you could find a lot of best practices there, and uh, yeah, it's it would be it's most desirable when all of the personnel there do something to get people to buy from their business or talk about their business. Um, that's that's a good way to keep keep things incorporated, and yeah. So um, now this is aspect. This is this here might seem political, but it's actually not negotiable and stuff. You have to understand that if you're running a business in U.S. territory, regardless of whether it's the 50 states or the U.S. Virgin Islands or Guam or something like that, you you have to understand the legal environment compels you to have uh, to do some sort of public service and stuff. So no, this is not an excuse. Um, this is not an excuse to get out of military service or whatever. If you are military and or law enforcement or something else that's like a 24/7 emergency service, I urge you not to run your own business on the side. Um, that can get you in serious legal trouble. Healthcare workers can lose their credentials over that. People can get dishonorably discharged over that and stuff. Because when when the chips are down, that becomes a 24/7 on-call service. So yeah, you have to understand like the ramifications for that. There is because there is no guarantee that the court, the related court, whether it's the military courts, whatever, or not, are going to let you are going to let you without some seriously grievous charges. The things like wall-to-wall counseling and other adverse actions are also a possibility and stuff. I'm just being very frank. Don't mess with don't. The people you don't want to mess with are the Department of Justice or the Department of Defense or the Department of War and stuff. You don't. Those are examples. Those types of organizations, you absolutely do not want to mess with them. Yeah. So you want to know how I made it to 33 years old, 34 years old? I never messed with them. So I joke with them. That's different. That's different. Okay. So we have the GSA.gov. It talks about the process. Discuss things like unique entity identifier, North American Industrial Classification Code, verify your small verify your balls. That's funny. Verify your small business status, register your system for award management. And again, you have options for military or other public service and stuff. Regardless of whether you've done the selective service contract or the draft contract and stuff, you must consider this, and try for this in earnest. Okay. Again, I'm not going to tell you something that's going to potentially get you in trouble. Okay. So, the funnel and marketing funnel. Customer relations and customer service. You want to, as much as realistically possible, avoid tricking people out of their money with this and stuff. This is a common pitfall with people and stuff. Keep it earnest, keep it real and stuff. Transactions and then point of transactions, training, customer training and stuff. If customers need your product and stuff, you're going to want them to come back. And, you make return customers with a good experience of being there with you and stuff. And that involves things like professionalism and how to work and stuff. Fast service times, good manners, expertise and accuracy in action. Those are the things that really bring in the money. And I have to close my door because I'm hearing noise from outside. Okay, so what a commercial break that was, right? I hate the word commercial. So, transaction, you need transactions, you need blah, 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 blah. Related credentials, knowledge, or experience and stuff. Yeah, if if you're unsure as to what you want to get into, go general and stuff. You know, and take it seriously. Take it so seriously that you understand the specifics within the generality and stuff. Be that MF if you need to be that MF. Whatever it takes. Requisitions, yeah, because you're gonna need to gather material. Requisitions is also part of business warfare and stuff. When you have spoils of some conflict. Here, I believe this is in a court context and stuff. Yeah, look for those spoils and stuff. And there are bad businesses out there. They use dubious business practices and stuff. You have to be very cautious, not of who you go after and why and stuff. But yeah, research and development. This is great. This is good for businesses that are thriving, that have surplus and whatnot. And if you can do research and development quickly enough during the initiation and construction, the establishment of the business, then that's great and stuff. Because now, you're gonna, you won't be grabbing at air. You're just gonna be, solution after solution, building. You're just gonna be so on point, addressing things that, at such a vast level of insight, you can't lose and stuff. In that type of an idea. So yeah, expansion and finance, yeah, and this is where financial engineering is very essential. And so, and I'll talk about what's essential to a person who for some reason just cannot put their education first. Okay, accounting. Yeah, you're gonna need accounting. And by the way, the manner of account and where you start your account is very important. The laws concerning your accounting are also very important and stuff. So do it. If you need to hire at least one tax expert, do it and stuff. If you're gonna do it yourself, base it off of the proper records and stuff. You don't want to mess with the Department of Justice or you just don't. Anything related to the Department of Justice, whether it's IRS, adverse actions, as related to tax law and stuff, you don't want to do that. you're gonna also need a dedicated facility that complies with a legal structure and stuff. Um, yeah. Uh, you're going to need at least one lawyer too, a commerce lawyer or employment lawyer, tax lawyer, etc. There's some examples of the type of lawyers. These are all lawyers related to business. So, you're going to have to at least consult with them and stuff at the smallest level and stuff. But if you have them on your payroll, then you can realize far more benefits and stuff. So you have to scale it down to what is your actual budget and stuff. As far as like financing your business and stuff, I would only take out a loan if you can afford to pay it back without penalty. Honestly, you don't want dissolvencies. It's not good. It's not good. You really want to avoid that. So yeah, I mean, we could talk about the legal aspects of it and stuff. Is it really right to borrow money and stuff? Well, depends. It depends on a lot of factors. Um, if you know, if you really can trust yourself, or the business can trust itself to be profitable, to where they could realistically pay off the loan, then do it and stuff. But understand that you're going to have to manage the risk. The risk just doesn't go away because of that moment. Um, and oh yeah, so you're going to need a legal structure, classification, compliance, trustworthiness. Yeah, your business needs to be trustworthy. Keep trust. You have to build reputation. You have to have a quality education and stuff. You don't want to run a you, you know what's an example of a good business? Like, you don't want to run a healthcare business with a master's in journalism. Like, what are you, crazy? What are you, crazy? What are you gonna do? Like, journal articles into saving people's lives and preventing illness and stuff like that. Like, come on. Like, that's tomfoolery and stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of people do that tomfoolery and stuff because they lack critical thinking. But yeah, I feel like I have to say it and stuff. Don't do something like that. If your degree, if you ended up with a crappy education and stuff, then you're gonna have to. Then you're building your business from some heavy air that you're gonna have to figuratively compact together. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but you can be mad at me, but you did it to yourself. You did it to yourself. I had no hand in it, so whatever. Operations and processes, what's called workflows, hustles, regular operations, dynamic operations. Yeah, some operations have to change over time. We always want to talk about how businesses don't need to change and blah blah blah, but no, they do. It's life isn't a game that changes because you view it different, you believe differently about it and stuff. No, I'm sorry. But some operations are regular and stuff. For example, inspections and stuff, paying bills and stuff. Keeping services and products available. Um, it's called yes, illegal warfare and stuff. Unfortunately, there are malicious actors that try to base lawsuits off of what's air and stuff. Maybe you haven't wronged anybody and stuff, but they still have a personal problem with you, or they want to, like a bandit, just gut you for your money and stuff, or harm your reputation, whatever. You're going to have to learn how to work with your lawyers to absolutely crush those people in court and stuff. So this is where the legal education comes in and stuff. If you aren't educated in a logical discipline like philosophy, math, or law and stuff, you better know that stuff very well. Counting and invoicing. Yeah, invoicing is important. It's even better when you're very transparent about your billing and stuff. And as you scale things up and things get more complicated, things are going to be busy or billable and stuff. In the busy work, it's in development phase. Things aren't really extracting money and stuff, or extracting a value for the minting and transforming process aspect of it, but they are they're getting ready to do it. Like the process quality is increasing by increasing the quality of the material and personnel and stuff. You know, things are getting organized. The you know, maybe your facility's smelling nicer or whatever. You know, because you know, I'm just thinking of like the case of like a retail business. Honestly, getting into retail franchising is kind of crappy and stuff. It's not. The processes are not lean, and uh, and thinking lean is better. It is in itself. So, research and development, customer relations, creativity, externality handling. Yeah, externalities are a thing in all economies, even just single businesses. So here we go, microeconomics. Chaos addressing. Yeah, you're gonna have to address the random factors and stuff. They're random factors. You know, there are bad customers that randomly show up. You know, and there's sometimes you get bad employees that randomly show up, and you're gonna have to address it. And again, like I talked about, you know, with the legal bandits, you know, people um, that just come and make these ridiculous reports. Uh, Training, sanitation and stuff. Yeah, of course. Of course. Physical labor, knowledge work, totally. If you can coordinate these things together and stuff, and everyone's cooperating with each other, that's great. That's great. It's perfect. There's a lot of complaints about the conflict between these, but you know, your business is going to do like 10 times better with, you know, strong physical labor and knowledge work, because the quality of your brains and the working muscle of everything is working well and stuff. And we could talk about what the character assets in business. For regular operations and stuff, you need a good backbone. Um, for handling whatever is throwing at them that involves things or people, you need guts and muscle. And for sharply attentive stuff and information, you need lots of brains and heart, preferably with more preference on brains and stuff. Because if anything drags down a business, it's not just a lack of brains, but it's also people that try to be political actors a little bit too much. There's, you know, it's good that a person's an entertainer and getting somebody engaged and stuff. I guess maybe even a charmer. That, you know, they treat people well and stuff. But if a person's just gonna be a political actor and stuff, you know, make a bunch of social media posts or whatever, then that person shouldn't even been there to begin with and stuff. That is, yeah. So generosity, yeah, of course, you know, generosity is great in business. You know, especially with customers. That's how you make return customers. That's how you send out a good signal to the world and stuff. You give what is in proportion to what you can afford and stuff. And the experience around the generosity is you know, a good treat for customers. General business handling and the focused work. Yeah, not all work is focused on one thing and stuff. So to all you people who are just like, no, I'm just gonna go to school and I'll get a great job after. No and stuff, because you are not ready for the more chaotic work and stuff. You, yeah, for that you want a basis in, I guess. I mean, this is like, I guess maybe athleticism and, you know, just a lot of good experience. On-site health treatment, though this is not always necessary. However, if you are in a healthcare desert, meaning like the nearest hospital or urgent care facility or whatever or emergency room is very, very far in terms of minutes or miles, or there's too many obstructions and stuff, yeah, you're going to want some on-site health treatment and stuff to get people medically stable and stuff in case medical services need to come. You avoid a lot of legal trouble that way too, because you're going to be avoiding adverse action that way and stuff. You'd be surprised at how much first aid and CPR type stuff becomes necessary in business. So yeah. Transportation, I mean, let's say entertainment. Customer entertainment's always a plus. Transportation, business warfare and competition, we talked about. Data analysis, record gathering, positional analysis and stuff. You want historical data, logical data just comes from reasoning. market data and stuff. And now, as far as like data analysis and stuff, the best type of people to do to get for this are quantitative analysis or data scientists and stuff. Um, I mean, if I need to pick one person and stuff, actually, you know what? I'll just omit the name and stuff. She decides when she shows up. So, da-da-da. Financial engineering and resource engineering. Yeah, you need that. Investing and sharing costs. Not sharing costs with. I mean, employees can choose to share costs and stuff. But you can share the cost between yourself and some other delegate. Ideally, you want to avoid doing that with people and stuff. You know, maybe you can get a business grant or something. Personal coordination and management. Personnel coordination and management. Yeah, you need this and stuff. You don't want clashing personalities to come together. And you want to be able to discipline your employees, motivate them, retain them, extract value and development and stuff. When you're extracting value, you have to be careful not to keep employees at their full capacity for too long and stuff. This is where people start to blow a gasket, and then they need to be turned over and stuff. You need to be keen to what's the stressor point for this person and how to get the value of their role and realize it into value and stuff. This is a good way to adapt to circumstance and whatnot. So virtual structure, if any, cyber structure, on-site structure, industrial operations, which are highly scalable and stuff. Industry is really just delegating the busy work or the work that's hard to reproduce to machinery and electronics and stuff like that, or tools to make the process more efficient. And when you can't do that, you use personnel and stuff. You want to be very careful with handling people and stuff, because this is, there's a lot of there's moral and ethical considerations there. Just like there's moral and ethical considerations with machinery and equipment and stuff. Like you have environmental implications and stuff. You don't want to mess with very institutions like the EPA and stuff like that. They are, it's just very important that businesses respect the environment and stuff. Things like air quality are not a joke, especially when people can come after you and stuff for harmful emissions and stuff like that. Again, proper billing and charging practices. We talked about billing in another video and stuff. It talks about how to avoid being scammed in products and services. If you're transparent with how you charge your customers, then you build trust and stuff. Though you shouldn't automatically assume that they want that and stuff. Sometimes they're just happy to take the product and service. Fine and stuff. But, don't interrupt the conversation or shift the tone to something nasty or just something undesirable because you feel like you need to tell them something. Don't do that. So then your business needs speed. Yeah. Faster process times are better. Especially when they are timed and stuff. Timing is going to beat speed sometimes. Some customers generally can't be in a fast business. They just can't. It's going to depend on the person's metabolic rate. So, customer. Yeah, of course you're going to need customers. You're always going to need at least one customer. What's a good reference point for that? Whatever. Sometimes your customers like a whole corporation and stuff, and they give you a bunch of money and stuff. Logistics and transport is highly scalable and stuff. It can be scaled down to just walking on foot, to having a fleet of clean emissions trucks or something like that. Or just something else that's well in hand and stuff. So logistics and transport is a shaky area because they it involves traffic accidents and traffic. When you're in the topic of traffic accidents, there's people's children in the cars. people's loved ones and stuff. Fathers, husbands. You got, just a lot of good people and stuff. Those people you have to be very cautious about. They're almost always there, but you can't tell who from who. So you got to be careful about that. So product and service facilities. Yeah, of course, your facilities, because we talked about facilities before here, but facilities, they break up into subdivisions and stuff. You know, like facilities have sub-facilities and stuff. You have an area for product and services. When you have organization, you don't have to sift through things. Here's maximum product or service availability. Yeah, of course, ideally you want a 24/7 business and stuff. Those 24/7 businesses keep towns, cities, municipalities, and stuff alive and stuff. They let the world know that, yeah, everything's going to be fine and stuff. There's going to be work tomorrow, meaning there's going to be pay. So that's good. And yeah, that's good for this episode. For the next episode, we're going to talk about business handling and business progress and stuff, and whatever we need to go into. So, yeah. I'm just going to make some notes here. All right. So we're at 31 minutes. That's fine for this. With this 31 minutes, I think people are going to be opening businesses. Why not? It's not like I think I've kept everybody clear of the hazards around it. There's other videos that with regards to the different hazards you want to avoid to keep yourself out of unnecessary trouble and stuff. But I'll tell you this: conflict, complications, setbacks, and stuff. These are sometimes inevitable, unfortunately. And good luck. I don't have. I wish I could be more helpful in that area and stuff, but it may fall on deaf ears and stuff. I already have the appearance that I do right now, so I don't even think a lot of people are going to take what I say seriously, but it is what it is. Goodbye. Okay. Yeah, we're done.